Picture this, folks, it's the vast, windswept Great Plains of North America in the 1800s, where the endless grass stretches out like an ocean under the big sky. And survival isn't just about hunting bison or enduring brutal winters, but about outsmarting the elements themselves in ways that could mean the difference between life and death. And right there in the heart of it all, a clever Dakota hunter digs what looks like a couple of simple holes in the ground, something his people have been doing for centuries. But when nearby settlers catch wind of it, they start chuckling and shaking their heads, calling it a sunken hearth, like it has some backward folly that couldn't possibly outdo their roaring open campfires. Yet little do they know, this unassuming pit is about to burn so clean and hot that it'll leave them speechless, begging for the secret and rewriting how folks think about fire forever. I mean, have you ever stopped to wonder why some ancient tricks still blow modern minds away? Especially when they come from indigenous wisdom that has been tested against the harshest pressure, where wind howls like a wolf and smoke could give away your position to rivals or scare off the very herds you're tracking. Let's dive into this real historical gem. Because the story of the Dakota firehole is just about flames, it is about ingenuity born from necessity. A tale that starts way back with the Dakota people, also known as the Sioux, who roamed the territories of what's now North and South Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Living as nomadic hunters who followed massive bison herds across the open plains, where resources were scarce and every bit of wood counted, and where starting a fire was as simple as striking a match. Since the constant gusts could snuff out your efforts in seconds or whip up a blaze that might ignite the dry grass into a raging wildfire, destroying everything in its path, including the game they depended on for food, clothing, and tools. You see, traditional open fires, the kind European settlers were used to piling high with logs, were messy affairs that belched thick smoke visible for miles, wasted fuel like nobody's business, and barely provided steady heat in those relentless winds. But the Dakota had figured out a better way long before colonists showed up with their iron pots and assumptions, drawing from generations of observation and adaptation to create a system so efficient it feels like cheating nature itself. And as we peel back the layers of this story, you'll see how this sunken hearth was just a hole in the dirt. It was a lifeline engineered for stealth, warmth, and sustainability in a world where Mother Nature didn't play fair. Now, imagine being one of those Dakota warriors on a hunting expedition, miles from your village, with the sun dipping low and the chill setting in, knowing that a visible fire could alert enemy tribes or spook the bison. So you grab your digging stick, maybe a sharpened bison bone or a sturdy branch, and start carving out two pits about a foot apart, one wider for the fire and the other narrower for air, connecting them with a short tunnel at the bottom. And as you light the kindling inside, the magic begins to unfold in ways that would make any survivalist today green with envy. But back then, when word spread to neighboring groups or early fur traders who peeked over with skepticism, the mockery kicked in hard, with folks whispering that burying your fire was like hiding from the warmth you needed, a sure sign of desperation or foolishness. Yet, as the night wore on and that pit started pulling in oxygen like a natural bellows, the flames danced hotter and cleaner than anything they'd seen, leaving barely a wisp of smoke to betray its presence. But hold on, because before we get to the jaw-dropping reveal that turned doubters into believers, let us explore exactly how this ancient setup worked its wonders, and why it became a game-changer on the plains you wouldn't believe the science hidden in the soil. So, building this Dakota fire hole was no rocket science, but it was pure genius in its simplicity, starting with selecting the right spot on firm, grassy soil, not too sandy or frozen, mind you, because the Dakota knew their prairies like the back of their hand, where the earth was rich and held its shape without crumbling, allowing them to dig a main fire pit about 12 inches wide and deep, shaped like a cylinder to contain the flames efficiently. Then a few feet away, they'd excavate a smaller air intake hole, maybe 6 to 8 inches across, angling it downward to meet the base of the fire pit through a connecting tunnel that acted like a chimney in reverse, pulling fresh oxygen straight to the heart of the blaze and creating this intense, upward draft that made the fire burn with ferocious heat while consuming far less wood than a surface fire ever could. And as the flames fed on that steady airflow, the smoke got sucked back down and reburned, turning what would be a hazy plume into almost nothing, just a faint haze that blended into the horizon, perfect for staying hidden during hunts or even in times of conflict when rival tribes might be scouting the landscape for signs of encampments. You know, it's fascinating how this setup tapped into basic physics without anyone needing a textbook. The heat rising created a vacuum that drew in more air, accelerating combustion like a forge. And the underground design shielded it from those relentless prairie winds that would otherwise scatter embers or douse the coals, meaning you could boil water, cook bison meat, or warm your hands with half the fuel and none of the hassle. A real boon for nomadic life, where carrying extra wood was an option, and every ounce mattered on long treks across the open terrain. And historically, this technique wasn't just for daily chores. It played a key role in the Dakota's bison hunts, where large groups would set up temporary camps without alerting the herds or starting accidental fires that could devastate the grasslands they all relied on, preserving the ecosystem in a way that showed deep respect for the land, something settlers later struggled to grasp when they overgrazed and plowed without thought. But here's where the drama heats up, as European explorers, fur trappers, and early homesteaders pushed westward in the 19th century, encountering Dakota communities and witnessing these sunken hearths in action. Their first reaction wasn't admiration. Oh, it was outright mockery. With folks raised on grandstone fireplaces back east or open bonfires in their wagons, scoffing at the idea of burying your fire like some primitive ritual, calling it inefficient or even dangerous, whispering among themselves that these natives were stuck in the past while they, with their metal tools and manifests of destiny, knew better ways to tame the wilderness. And you'd hear tailies around, trading posts of settlers, laughing off invitations to try it, preferring their smoky, wood-guzzling setups that left them coughing through the night, invisible from afar. Yet one crisp evening, as a curious trapper or two finally agreed to watch a demonstration, the truth started flickering to life in ways that challenged everything they thought they knew about fire. And as that pit roared to life with a heat so intense it could sear meat in minutes and a cleanliness that left no telltale ash scattered about, the skeptic's jaws dropped. But wait until you hear how this simple invention did just win over neighbors. It sparked a legacy that reached far beyond the plains, influencing survival tactics for generations to come. Now, as the flames in that Dakota fire hole leaped higher and hotter than any open blaze the mockers had ever tended, with a steady, controlled burn that radiated warmth, like a natural oven, without the wasteful flare-ups or choking smoke that plagued traditional methods. Those once skeptical neighbors, be they fellow tribespeople from different bands or encroaching settlers testing the waters of coexistence, couldn't help but gather closer, their laughter fading into wide-eyed wonder as they felt the intense heat penetrate the cold night air. Realizing this, Sunken Hearth was not a joke but a masterpiece of efficiency that used the Earth's own structure to amplify fire's power, burning cleaner by reburning gases in the draft and hotter through concentrated oxygen flow, all while minimizing fuel needs in a land where trees were sparse and every stick counted towards survival rather than spectacle. You can almost hear the hushed conversations turning from doubt to questions, with folks asking how such a basic dig could outperform their piled-high logs that sputtered and smoked. And in those moments, the Dakota's wisdom shone through, sharing the knowledge not out of spite, but from a cultural tradition of harmony with nature, where fire wasn't conquered but collaborated with, leading to stories passed down of settlers who, incorporating it into their homesteads and even teaching it to their children as a vital skill against the unforgiving frontier. Historically, this invention's impact rippled outward, influencing not just daily life on the plains, but military strategies too, as by the time of the Vietnam War, U.S. soldiers were trained in building Dakota fire holes to cook meals stealthily in jungles, evading detection from enemies, just as the original users had hidden from rivals or wildlife centuries earlier. And today, survivalists, campers, and even backyard enthusiasts rediscover it for its eco-friendly perks, reducing carbon footprints and fire risks in ways that echo the Dakota's sustainable ethos, proving that indigenous innovations often hold timeless solutions to modern problems like energy waste and environmental strain. It's a reminder, isn't it, how dismissing something unfamiliar can blind us to breakthroughs. And in the case of the Dakota people, whose rich heritage faced erasure through colonization, this firehole stands as a symbol of resilience and ingenuity that outlasted the mockers, continuing to warm hearts and minds long after the plains changed hands. So, if you've ever camped out and struggled with a windy fire, or just love uncovering hidden history that flips the script on what we think we know, why not give this a try in your own safe spot? Dig one up, light it, and feel the difference for yourself. But always check local regs and safety first, of course. And hey, if this tale of triumph over skepticism fired you up, smash that like button. Subscribe for more real stories from the past that still spark today. Drop a comment below, sharing if you've built a Dakota fire hole or what historical hack you'd want me to cover next. Let us keep the conversation burning.